You want to know how I lost everything and got half of it back? All right. But I'm telling it the way it happened, not the way it sounds good. It starts with a drawing. A second grader's crayon drawing on manila paper, the kind they tack up on classroom walls with that green sticky stuff. That's what cracked my whole life open. Not a private investigator, not a lipstick stain. A 7-year-old girl with a red crayon. I was under a 2019 F-150 that Tuesday afternoon. Fleet truck, bad ball joint, the kind of job where you're on your back for 2 hours and your shoulders hate you for a week. Classic rock on the shop radio, Springsteen doing Atlantic City, which is funny when you think about it later because the whole song's about a man going down. Oil and coffee smell. That's what Kowalski Auto smells like. That's what I smell like, if I'm being honest. Phone buzzed in my coveralls. A 412 number I didn't know. Almost let it ring. Should have let it ring. Sometimes I think about that. What if I just didn't pick up? I'd still be the same idiot, but I'd be a happy idiot, at least for a while longer. Mr. Kowalski? This is Linda Grant. I'm Lily's teacher at Lincoln Elementary. Her voice had that careful thing in it. You know the tone. Like someone reading off a card at a funeral. The tone people use when they think they're talking to a broken home. I wanted to touch base about Lily's family drawing assignment. She drew herself, her mother, and a man she called Uncle Curtis. I just wanted to make sure I had the right contact information. Are you and Mrs. Kowalski still together? And I laughed. I actually laughed. The kind of laugh where you're not thinking about it. It just comes out because the idea is so far from anything real. Yeah, we're together. Curtis is just my best friend. He's her godfather. She probably sees him more than her grandparents. Mrs. Grant sounded relieved. We did the polite wrap-up thing, and she hung up. I slid back under the truck. My hands didn't move for a long time. See, here's what happened in that silence under the F-150. Nothing. And everything. I wasn't thinking anything specific. But something settled in my gut. That feeling you get in country when the road ahead is too quiet. You can't explain it. Your body just knows before your brain catches up. I got home around 8:30. Jackie was on the couch watching one of those home renovation shows where people with 200 grand act like it's not enough money. Lily was already in bed. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door, poured myself a glass of water, sat on the armrest. Funny thing, I said. Lily's teacher called me today. Lily drew Curtis in her family picture. The teacher thought we were divorced. I was smiling when I said it. I was still in the world where it was funny. Jackie didn't laugh. She froze. And I mean her whole body went still for about half a second. Then she overcorrected so hard she practically did a backflip. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Kids are so random. Did she draw the dog too? We don't even have a dog. We don't have a dog? She was right about that. But the dog wasn't the point. The point was the way she grabbed the remote and changed the channel and asked me about the shop in the same breath, like she was throwing sandbags in front of a flood. I noticed. For the first time in, God, I don't know how long, I noticed. I went upstairs. Lily was half asleep, her nightlight throwing pink stars on the ceiling. I sat on the edge of her bed. She smelled like that strawberry shampoo she insists on. Hey, Lilybug, your teacher told me about your drawing. That was really cool. She blinked up at me, all heavy eyes. I drew Uncle Curtis because he's always here. Something in me tilted, like a level bubble sliding off center. Daddy, Why does Uncle Curtis sleep in your bed when you're not there? I didn't breathe. The room stayed exactly the same. The pink stars, the stuffed elephant she calls Gerald, the stack of library books on the nightstand. Everything exactly the same, and nothing the same ever again. I kissed her forehead. Go to sleep, baby, my voice held. My hands didn't. I sat in my truck in the driveway for close to an hour. Engine off, lights off. November in Pittsburgh, so it was cold, the windshield fogging from my breath. I didn't call anyone. I didn't look at my phone. I just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, squeezing it until my knuckles popped, staring at the lit kitchen window where Jackie was cleaning up. From outside, the house looked exactly like what it was supposed to be. Warm light, clean curtains, a woman moving behind the glass. Picture perfect. A lie you could hang on a wall. I didn't go back inside. I drove to the shop and slept on the couch in my office. That couch is about 5 feet long, and I'm 5'11", so my boots hung off the end. The fluorescent light in the hallway buzzed all night. That 60-cycle hum that never quite becomes silence. I stared at the ceiling and did what I do when I diagnose a car. I went back through everything. Every moment, every conversation, every night I wasn't home, every time Curtis was there when I walked in, every time Jackie said, "Oh, Curtis fixed the dryer," or "Curtis picked Lily up, don't worry about it." Every time she said his name and I thought, good. My brother's looking out for my family. The thing about betrayal, and I didn't know this until that night, is that it doesn't just ruin the present, it goes backward. It poisons every good memory you have. Every barbecue, every birthday, every time you saw your best friend bounce your daughter on his knee and thought, he's gonna be a great dad someday. It all turns, like milk in the sun. I didn't confront anyone. That's not how I work. When I'm angry, I don't yell. I go quiet. My old man was the same way. Polish blood. We go cold, not hot. It scares people more, honestly. A man who's screaming, you can handle. A man who goes silent. You don't know what he's carrying. I told Jackie I had late jobs all week. She didn't question it. Why would she? I'd been working late for the last year and a half. She was used to me not being there. That was the whole design. Day 2, I parked my truck on Dearborn Street, 2 blocks from the house, and walked home at 4:30 in the afternoon. Curtis's Audi was in my driveway. Black A6, always polished, always perfect. The man waxed his car more than he ever cared about another human being. I stood behind the big maple on the corner, the one with the city tag on it. Felt ridiculous. A grown man hiding behind a tree on his own street. But I had to see. Through the living room window, Curtis and Jackie on the couch. They weren't touching, not right then. But her feet were tucked under his leg. His arm was on the back of the couch behind her shoulders. They were watching something on TV, and she was laughing at whatever he said, leaning into him a little. And Lily. My daughter was at the kitchen table behind them, doing homework, completely unbothered. Like this was Tuesday. Because it was. This was every Tuesday and every Wednesday and every Thursday. This was the life that happened in my house while I was on my back under someone else's truck. That's what wrecked me more than anything physical ever could. Not imagining them together in whatever way. It was the domesticity, the slippers and TV of it. Curtis had replaced me, and my daughter thought it was furniture, just how the house worked. I walked back to my truck and drove to the shop. Worked until midnight on a brake job that should have taken an hour because I kept stopping to stare at the wall. That night, I came home late enough that Jackie was already asleep, or pretending. I went to our room. Our room? The room with the bed I'd assembled from an IKEA box the week we moved in, cursing at those little wooden dowels. And I sat on the edge while she breathed. Her phone was on the nightstand, buzzing. A text coming in. I picked it up. No password. She was that comfortable, that careless, that sure I'd never look. Hundreds of texts. Scrolling through them felt like reading someone else's life. Pet names I'm not going to repeat. Plans. Inside jokes. Complaints about me. And that's the part that stuck in my teeth. Curtis, he doesn't deserve you. Never did. Jackie, I know, but Lily loves him. Curtis, Lily loves me. I'm the one who's here. That one. That one right there. I read it 3 times. My daughter's name in his mouth, as currency, as a chip in his little poker game. Lily loves me. And then, from 3 weeks back, Jackie. I'm late. I'm scared. Curtis. Don't panic. You said you were on the pill. Jackie. I was. I missed a couple weeks when things got crazy at work. Curtis. We'll figure it out. Together. I put the phone down exactly where it was. Didn't screenshot anything. Didn't need to. Every word was burned into me like a brand. I went downstairs and drank a glass of water at the kitchen sink, looking out at the backyard. That backyard. 6 months ago, Lily's birthday party. I was out there grilling burgers on the Weber, wearing that stupid Kiss the Cook apron she gave me for Father's Day. And inside, 20 feet from where I was flipping patties. That's where it started between them. The first kiss. While I was cooking for my daughter's party, the water tasted like nothing. I put the glass in the sink and stood there until my legs hurt. Tyler Novak is my lead mechanic. Good kid. 25, maybe 26. One of those guys who looks younger than he is because he still can't grow a full beard. He'd been acting off for weeks, dropping wrenches, losing focus, starting conversations and then bailing like a fish that spits the hook. The morning after I read those texts, I was quiet. Quieter than usual, which is saying something. I was pricing out parts at my desk, not really seeing the screen. Tyler came and stood in my office doorway, shifted his weight, rubbed his hands on his shop rag, the nervous tell of a man who works with his hands. Boss, I gotta tell you something. I should have told you a long time ago. I looked up at him. Didn't say anything. I was at Mulligan's a few months back. Lawrenceville, you know the place. I was in the back booth. Curtis was in the next one over with a couple of guys. Insurance guys, the kind with the nice watches. He'd had a few. Tyler was looking at the floor like it owed him money. He was talking about Jackie, about you. He said he'd been in love with her since the night he introduced you to, that he waited 10 years. Tyler's jaw was working, like the words tasted bad. One of the other guys said, "That's cold. He's your best friend." And Curtis, I'll never forget this, Dom. He kind of laughed, real quiet, and he said, "He's my best friend because I let him be. I gave him Jackie. Now I'm taking her back." The shop was loud around us. Pneumatic wrench going in the next bay, radio playing the Kinks, normal sounds, world going on. "How long have you known?" I asked. Tyler looked like he wanted to vomit. 3 months. Okay. I closed my office door. I sat behind my desk and I put my head in my hands and I let myself have about 2 minutes of whatever that feeling was. Not rage, not sadness, something underneath both, like the floor dropping out. Then I wiped my face, pulled up the parts order, and went back to work. I gave it 5 days. 5 days of watching, listening, saying nothing. 5 days of sleeping at the shop, telling Jackie the fleet jobs were killing me, and her not even pretending to be disappointed. 5 days of going over every interaction from the last 2 years and seeing the architecture of it. The scaffolding Curtis had built around my life to hollow it out. On day 5, I drove downtown. Curtis worked in one of those mid-rise buildings on Liberty Avenue, the kind with the glass walls so everyone can see how important you are. His name was on a placard, Curtis Brandt, Senior Broker. The lobby had marble floors and a security desk, and a girl with a headset who looked at my Carhartt jacket and my steel toes like I'd wandered in from a job site, which I had. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Curtis Brandt." "Do you have an appointment?" "Tell him it's Dom." She called up. I could hear her voice change when Curtis told her to send me up. Like it was fine now, the guy in the work boots had a friend in the building. I took the elevator. The carpet in the hallway was so thick it ate the sound of my steps. Curtis's office had a view of the river. He was behind his desk in a blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up, looking exactly like what he was. A man who made his living talking people into things. He looked up and smiled. Big, natural smile. 28 years of practice. "Dom, what are you doing downtown? You want to grab? My daughter drew you instead of me in a family picture." The smile didn't die. It was killed. I watched it happen, like a light switch, not a dimmer. "She told me you sleep in my bed when I'm not there." He stood up. His hands went to his desk, then his pockets, then his desk again. He couldn't find a surface to hold on to. "Dom, listen, let me—" 28 years. My voice was flat. I could hear it from outside myself, like listening to a recording. "You were the first friend I ever had. Dearborn Street, you and me, 6 years old. I would have taken a bullet for you. I almost did, twice, in Kunar province. Once in that alley outside the outpost, and again at the checkpoint when the whole thing went sideways. And this whole time, you were waiting." He was doing it. I could see it happening behind his eyes. The calculation, the search for the angle, the smooth exit, the story that makes it someone else's fault. Curtis always had a door. Every room he walked into, he knew where the exits were. Not this time. I hit him once. Straight right, from the shoulder, the way they taught us at Benning, or more, or whatever they're calling it now. Open hand to closed fist, full rotation. Not to break anything, just to let him know this wasn't a conversation. He dropped. More surprised than hurt, I think, but there was blood from his nose, and he was on his back on that expensive carpet, and I was standing over him, and I wanted to keep going. Every muscle in my body was pulling toward the floor. I didn't. "You gave me business advice to keep me out of my own house. You introduced us because you wanted her, and when she picked me, you spent a decade waiting for your shot. You're not a friend. You're a project." He wiped his face with the back of his hand. Blood on his cuff. And then, this is the part I'll never forget. He tried to flip it. "She came to me, Dom. She was lonely. You were never there. I was—" "Don't you dare put this on me. Not one word." He shut up. For the first time in 28 years, Curtis Brandt had nothing to say. I walked out. Same pace I walked in. The receptionist stared at me with her mouth open. I didn't look back. I took the elevator down and walked through the marble lobby and pushed through the glass doors and stood on Liberty Avenue in the November air, and I was shaking so bad I had to put my hands in my pockets so nobody would see. I drove to a parking lot down by the river, the Monongahela side, near the old steel works that's been a shopping center for 20 years. I sat in my truck and watched the water. It was gray-green and moving fast because we'd had rain. My hands still wouldn't stop. I called one person. Ray Pulaski, my platoon brother, the kind of friend Curtis pretended to be. Ray runs a security firm now. He's built like a fire hydrant, and he doesn't waste words. Ray, I need a lawyer, a good one, the kind that goes to war. Silence on his end. 3 seconds. Ray doesn't ask questions when your voice sounds the way mine sounded. Elliot Sharp, used to be Jag. He's a killer, Dom. I'll call him tonight. Thanks, brother. You okay? No? Yeah, figured. I'll call you in an hour. That was it. That was the moment I stopped being the man who got blindsided and started being the man who fights back. The grief was still there. It didn't go anywhere. But it stepped aside and let something harder take the wheel. 2 days later, my phone rang at the shop. Pittsburgh PD Curtis had filed an assault charge. Simple assault. Misdemeanor, but enough. He had photos of his bruised face, looking pitiful, all swollen cheekbone and sad eyes. He had a statement from the receptionist who saw me leave. He played the victim like he'd been rehearsing it his whole life. And here's the part that made my blood go cold. He'd been laying groundwork. Sharp found out later that Curtis had told colleagues weeks before the confrontation that I had anger issues, and he was worried about Jackie's safety. Weeks before. Before I knew anything. He was building the frame before the picture even existed. That's who Curtis was. That's who he always was. The rest of us play checkers. Curtis played chess. And he started playing when we were 6 years old. Jackie called me that night. Not to apologize, not to explain, to scream. You hit him? What is wrong with you? He's pressing charges, Dominic. She said his name with more concern than she'd said mine in a year. You assaulted him at his job, in front of people. Do you know what that looks like? Do you know what it looks like when your best friend sleeps in your bed? Silence. 2 seconds. Then she went around it like it wasn't there. Curtis says I should file a PFA. A PFA, protection from abuse. She wanted a restraining order against me. The man who'd never raised his voice at her in 9 years of marriage. The man who coached Lily's t-ball team and braided her hair before school because Jackie could never get the part straight. And those 2 words, Curtis says, told me everything I needed to know. He was coaching her, directing her. This wasn't a woman acting on her own fear. This was a chess piece being moved by the same hand that had been moving all of us for years. That's my house, Jackie. My name is on the deed. I built that porch with my own hands. I want you out. You don't get to want me out. You get to explain to a judge why the man who was sleeping with my wife is telling you how to run a legal strategy. She hung up. First time she'd ever hung up on me. Wouldn't be the last. Elliot Sharp's office was in the Strip District, above a wholesale restaurant supplier. You walked up a staircase that smelled like garlic and cardboard, and at the top was a door with his name in plain black letters. No fancy anything. Diplomas on the wall, law books, and one framed photo of his old JAG unit. A bunch of guys in desert camo squinting at the camera like they all had the same headache. Sharp himself looked like a high school math teacher who'd gotten in a fight and won. Thin, gray at the temples, wire glasses, hands that were always moving. He'd been Army JAG, military lawyer, and then came home and opened a practice that specialized in the exact intersection of criminal defense and family law that my life had become. The punch was stupid, he said. First words after I sat down. You know that. I know. But it's a misdemeanor, first offense, And you were provoked in a way that would make any judge in Allegheny County nod. I can work with it. He leaned back. What I need from you now, and I mean starting this second, is discipline. No contact with Curtis. No contact with Jackie unless it's about Lily. And even then, text only. Everything in writing. You don't call. You don't show up. You don't stand outside looking at the house. You are a saint from this moment forward. He laid it out quick. The assault charge would likely get knocked down to ARD, First-Time Offender Program. I'd do anger management, keep my nose clean for 6 months, and the charge goes away like it never happened. The PFA threat was more dangerous. If Jackie filed, I'd get kicked out of my own home temporarily, and Sharp would have to fight to get me back in. And custody. If this turned into a divorce, and it was going to, Lily was everything. Every move I made from this point had to make me look like what I was. The stable parent. Your buddy is an insurance broker, Sharp said. He builds cases for a living. He's been building one against you for months, so now we build ours. That night, I went through my business records. Every contract, every deal, every piece of advice Curtis had ever given me about the shop. What I found made me sit down. 18 months ago, Curtis told me to take on a fleet maintenance contract with a regional trucking outfit. Great opportunity, Dom. Steady cash flow. Long hours, tight margins, emergency calls at 2 a.m. He brokered the insurance for that same trucking company. He made commission on both sides of the deal, a fact he never mentioned. He told me not to hire a night shift mechanic. Save the overhead, brother. You can handle the overnights for now. Which guaranteed I'd be the one sleeping at the shop 3 nights a week. He talked me out of a partnership offer from another shop owner that would have freed up my time. You don't want a partner, Dom. You built this yourself. Don't give it away. Every piece of advice, every brotherly nudge, every "I'm looking out for you, man." It was all architecture. He designed my absence. He built a tunnel between my house and my shop and made sure I was always at the wrong end of it. I drove to Cranberry Township on a Sunday morning. 30 minutes north of the city, that sprawl of chain restaurants and new construction where everyone moves when they want a yard. Teresa Brandt, Curtis's ex-wife, lived in an apartment complex near the Turnpike exit. Ray had found her address. She opened the door and looked at me for about 3 seconds, and her face went through a whole weather cycle. Surprise, then pity, then something hard and satisfied. So you finally believe me. 2 years ago, Teresa had called me. She'd just left Curtis, and she was trying to tell me something I didn't want to hear. I'd said, "Teresa, I'm sorry about you and Curtis, but you can't drag me into your divorce." "Jackie and Curtis? Come on, that's ridiculous." And I'd hung up. I'd even told Curtis about the call, and he'd shaken his head sadly and said, "She's crazy, Dom, making stuff up to hurt me because I wouldn't give her the house." I believed him. Of course I believed him. I'd known him since I was 6. Teresa's apartment was small but clean. She'd rebuilt. She had a job, a cat, a little balcony with dead plants because it was November. She sat me down at her kitchen table and poured coffee into mismatched mugs and told me everything. When I married him, I found a box in his closet. Not hidden, just tucked behind some boots. Journals, years of them, about Jackie. She paused, stirring her coffee slowly. Not love letters, Dominic. They weren't romantic. They were like operational notes. Her schedule, her habits, notes about you, what you were doing wrong, where you were falling short, how he could do it better. Pages about how you stole her from him. Plans to get her back. Photos of her he'd taken at your barbecues, at Lily's christening. Photos she didn't know he was taking. I asked the question that had been eating me since the office. Then why did he introduce us in the first place? Teresa almost laughed. It was in the journals. He thought she'd turn you down. You were a grease monkey. She was a college girl. His words, not mine. He figured he'd play matchmaker, you'd crash and burn, and she'd come running to him because he was the thoughtful friend who tried to help. Except she didn't turn you down. She liked you. And that was the thing he never forgave. I didn't say anything. The coffee was getting cold in my hands. I confronted him. He turned it around on me. Said I was insecure, paranoid, jealous. I pushed harder and he got not violent, worse, cold, methodical, made me feel like I was losing my mind. That's his gift. She sipped her coffee. When I called you, the affair hadn't started. Not yet. Jackie told me to my face I was paranoid. And she was telling the truth as far as she knew. But Curtis was already working on her. Setting it up. He's patient, Dominic. He waits years. She got up from the table and came back with a USB drive. Silver, scuffed, the size of a thumb. I kept copies of the journal entries, screenshots from texts I found on his phone during the marriage. Nothing physical between them at that point, but the emotional stuff was already over the line. And a voicemail he left Jackie during our divorce, thinking I wouldn't find it. He told her not to worry about me. That once the divorce was done, things will be different. She put the USB drive on the table between us. I knew this day would come. I just didn't know if you'd be smart enough to come knocking. I picked up the drive. It weighed nothing. It weighed everything. Teresa, I'm sorry I didn't listen. She looked at me with eyes that had already done all the crying they were going to do. I know you are. Now go burn it all down. Pittsburgh's a small city pretending to be a big one. 6 degrees of separation? Try 2. Everybody knows everybody, and if they don't, their cousin does. That's how Natalie Voss found me. Natalie was Jackie's best friend, fellow nurse at UPMC Mercy. They'd worked the same ER shifts for years. Tyler knew her through some cousin of a cousin thing. This is Pittsburgh, like I said. And Natalie reached out through him, asking to meet. We sat in a coffee shop in Bloomfield. She was a small woman, dark hair pulled back, bags under her eyes. She kept both hands on her mug like she was trying to warm them, even though the place was heated. I should have called you sooner, she said. I've been carrying this for months and I can't do it anymore. I waited. I'd gotten good at waiting. Jackie told me about Curtis about a year ago. Not that anything physical had happened, but she said she had feelings for him. That he got her in a way you didn't. I told her she was out of her mind. She said she'd stop. She said it was just a crush and she'd put distance between them. Natalie shook her head. She didn't. It kept building, and by last spring it wasn't just feelings anymore. And the story she was telling, it was like a script someone else wrote. Dom's never home. He doesn't listen. Curtis understands me. Every time, same words. Because Curtis wrote them. Yeah. Natalie's jaw tightened. I tried to push back. I told her, Dom works because he's trying to provide for you. Curtis is single with no kids and all the time in the world. That's not the same as being a better husband. She got angry. Stopped telling me things after that. She looked into her coffee. But I was there for one thing she couldn't take back. I was with her at the hospital when she took the pregnancy test. Her hands were shaking. She looked at me and whispered, "I don't know whose it is, Nat." That landed where she meant it to land. She told Curtis before she told you. And his reaction, she told me this herself, he was happy. He said it might be their chance to start fresh. Fresh? Like your daughter didn't exist. Like your whole marriage was just a rough draft. Natalie set her coffee down. Dominic, she's not an evil person. She's a weak one. And Curtis, he isn't a person. He's a project manager. He managed your whole life like a business plan. I asked her if she'd put what she knew in writing. For my lawyer. She said yes before I finished the sentence. The PFA papers hit me at the shop. A constable walked in during business hours. Tyler and two other guys were right there, mid-oil change, and they all stopped what they were doing when the uniform came through the bay door. Temporary PFA. I couldn't go within 500 feet of Jackie or the house. I got supervised visitation with Lily. 2 hours, twice a week, at a visitation center on the south side that smelled like industrial cleaner and bad decisions. I read the papers standing at my workbench, read them twice, folded them neatly, put them in my jacket pocket, went back to the brake job I'd been working on. Tyler told Ray later, "I've never seen anyone that angry and that quiet at the same time." The PFA hearing was in Allegheny County Courthouse, that big stone building downtown that always looks like it's frowning at you. Sharp had 10 days to prepare, and he used every one of them. Jackie took the stand looking like she'd rehearsed in a mirror. Every answer was measured. She talked about my volatile temperament. She feared for her safety after the assault on Curtis. She implied, without ever quite saying it, that there was a pattern. She was good. I'll give her that. Or Curtis was good. Same thing. Sharp stood up for the cross-examination, and he was something to watch. Not theatrical, not loud. Just precise, like a man threading a needle. "Mrs. Kowalski, has your husband ever struck you?" "No." "Has he ever threatened you?" "Not directly." "Not directly? What does that mean?" Her lawyer objected. The judge told Sharp to move on. "Has your husband ever damaged property in anger, punched a wall, broken a dish, anything like that?" "No." "Has he ever raised his voice at your daughter?" "No." And then she added, without being asked, maybe because the truth was pulling it out of her, "He's a good father." Sharp paused long enough to let that settle in the room. So the sole basis for this protection from abuse order is that your husband struck the man who was sleeping with you in your bed. Is that correct? Jackie's lawyer was on his feet before the period hit. Objection. Sustained. But the judge heard it. You could see it register behind his glasses. Sharp brought in Teresa's material. Not the full affair story, but enough to paint Curtis as someone with a documented pattern of obsessive behavior and manipulation. He framed my punch as a one-time provoked incident, which it was. He called Natalie Voss, who testified, calm and steady, that Jackie had never once expressed fear of me. Only frustration that I work too much. Natalie told the court that Jackie had called Curtis her safe place. Not once had she called me dangerous. The judge denied the PFA, insufficient evidence of a pattern or credible threat. Sharp found me in the hallway after. He was almost smiling, which for him meant one corner of his mouth twitched. "You can go home." "I'm not going home. File for divorce, file for primary custody." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay, then we go to war." I moved into the apartment above the shop. 2 rooms and a bathroom, Probably hadn't been occupied since the 80s. Water stains on the ceiling. Radiator that clanked like a ghost with a grudge. I cleaned it out, patched the walls, and painted Lily's room myself. I did stars on the ceiling. Hand-painted, not stickers, because my daughter deserves real stars even if they're crooked. I built her a bookshelf out of scrap lumber from DeMarco's shop. Stocked the fridge with her yogurt tubes and those little cheese wheels she likes. It wasn't much, but it was clean and it was honest. Meanwhile, I went through the business. The fleet contract Curtis had brokered was a mess once you actually read the fine print. High deductibles, penalty clauses for late service, liability coverage that wouldn't protect a bicycle. Ray connected me with a forensic accountant, a veteran named Walsh, who looked like an accountant the way a pit bull looks like a house pet. Walsh found that Curtis's brokerage had earned double commission on the deal, a referral kickback from the trucking company that was never disclosed to me. That wasn't just betrayal. That was a licensing violation. Sharp filed a complaint with the Pennsylvania Insurance Department before the week was out. I renegotiated the fleet contract directly, cutting Curtis out. I hired a night shift mechanic, a young vet Ray recommended, a kid from Wilkinsburg who showed up early and left late and reminded me of myself 10 years ago. And I finally called Frank DeMarco, the shop owner who'd offered me a partnership a year ago, the deal Curtis talked me out of. Frank came by the shop on a Tuesday. Big guy, hands like catcher's mitts, third-generation mechanic. He looked around, looked at the books, looked at me. "Curtis told you not to do this?" "Yeah." Frank shook his head slowly. "I met that guy once, at your Christmas party. He shook my hand and I swear I could feel him measuring me, like he was deciding if I was a threat." He stuck out his hand. "Let's do this." Kowalski and DeMarco Auto Repair. For the first time in 18 months, I was home by 6. Except home was a 2-room apartment above a garage. But it was mine. Sharp filed for divorce on grounds of adultery. Pennsylvania still lets you do that, fault-based, and Sharp wasn't interested in playing nice. He filed for primary physical custody of Lily at the same time. Jackie was blindsided. She'd expected me to crumble. That was Curtis's prediction, I'm sure of it. Dom's a pushover. He'll do whatever keeps the peace. And maybe the old Dom would have. The Dom who was too busy working to notice his life being stolen. That Dom might have signed whatever she put in front of him just to make it stop. That Dom was dead. I buried him somewhere under the F-150 on a Tuesday afternoon in November. The county appointed a custody evaluator, a court psychologist who had the warmth of a clipboard. She interviewed us both, visited both homes, and talked to Lily with a child psychologist present. She came to my apartment twice, unannounced. Both times it was clean, stocked, Lily's drawings on the fridge. She came to the Kowalski house 3 times, unannounced. 2 of those 3 times, Curtis's jacket was in the closet, his coffee mug was by the sink, and his car was in the driveway. He was still there. Even after everything, the charges, the PFA hearing, the divorce filing, he was still showing up at my house like he owned it. Jackie didn't have the spine to tell him to stop, and Curtis didn't have the decency to know he should. Lily's interview was done by the child psychologist, age-appropriate, careful. I wasn't in the room. But Sharp got the report. She said she missed her dad. She said Uncle Curtis was nice but loud. She said her mom cried a lot. When the psychologist asked her where she felt safest, my daughter said, "At Daddy's shop. It smells like cars and he always has time for me there." And then the drawing came up again. They asked her about the family picture, the one that started all of this. Lily said, I drew Uncle Curtis because he's always at our house, but I wish I drew Daddy. I was going to, but I didn't know if he counts because he's always at work. I didn't know if he counts. Sharp told me that with the same flat tone he used for everything, and I had to stand up and walk to the window and look at the parking lot for a while. It cut both ways, showed I wasn't around, but showed why, and showed that my kid's heart was pointing at me even when I wasn't there. That was enough. That had to be enough. Jackie was 5 months pregnant by then, visible, undeniable. During the evaluation, they asked her about the pregnancy. She admitted she didn't know the paternity. Sharp requested a prenatal paternity test, non-invasive, just a blood draw, legal in Pennsylvania. Jackie's lawyer fought it. The court ordered it anyway because paternity mattered for custody and living arrangements. The results came to Sharp's office. He called me in. I sat in the same chair I'd sat in the first time. Same diplomas on the wall, same photo of the JAG unit. Sharp had the envelope on his desk, already opened. The baby is yours. I sat with that. Didn't speak. The clock on his wall ticked, one of those old analog ones, and I counted maybe 30 ticks before I trusted my voice. Mine. Yours. Which changes the landscape. You have parental rights to the unborn child. It also strengthens your position significantly. She was carrying your baby while doing what she was doing. I'd wanted a clean break, a straight line. This tied me to Jackie forever. But it also tied me to my kid. And the math on that wasn't complicated. I want custody of both, primary, both kids. Sharp nodded like he'd known I'd say that. When Jackie found out the baby was mine, something shifted. I heard about it secondhand. Natalie told Tyler. Tyler told me. The chain of whispers that runs through Pittsburgh like the rivers. Jackie called Curtis. Voicemail. Called again. Voicemail. She texted him and he responded once. I think we both need space. But don't let that fool you into thinking Curtis went quietly. He didn't. Not at first. In the weeks after the paternity results, he tried everything. He called Jackie's mother and told her I was unstable and had been threatening Jackie for months. He emailed 3 people at my shop, business contacts he still had from brokering the fleet deal, and suggested I'd been skimming from the fleet contract. Complete fabrication, but it took Walsh the accountant 2 days to put out that fire. He even showed up at Lily's school once, tried to sign her out for an early pickup. The school called me because my name was on the contact list and his wasn't. That one scared me more than anything else he'd done. Sharp sent a cease and desist that read like a declaration of war. He spelled out everything we had, the journals, the financial fraud, Tyler's testimony, Natalie's statement. And he made it clear. If Curtis didn't back off, every piece of it would be entered into the public record of the divorce proceedings. Every colleague, every client, every future employer would see the diaries, the obsessive photographs, the operational notes about another man's wife. That's what stopped him. Not conscience, not shame. The threat of exposure. Curtis could survive being the guy who slept with his best friend's wife. That's a bad look, but people recover. He couldn't survive being the guy with the journals, the guy who planned it for a decade. That turns you from a villain into something people cross the street to avoid. His brokerage license was under review. The assault charge against me was collapsing. And now, Sharp had a loaded gun pointed at his reputation. Curtis did what you'd expect from a man who'd spent his whole life calculating risk. He ran the numbers, and he ran. He took a job transfer to Charlotte, North Carolina. 2 weeks later, he was gone. Didn't tell Jackie, didn't tell anyone. My daughter came home from school and said, "Uncle Curtis's car isn't outside anymore." And that was the eulogy for a 28-year friendship. Sharp negotiated with the DA's office on the assault charge. Provocation, first offense, no record, the broader context. They offered ARD. I did the anger management course. 8 weeks, every Thursday, in a church basement in Homewood with folding chairs and bad coffee. Wrote some worksheets, talked about my feelings to a group of men who'd all done something they regretted. The charge was dismissed after 6 months and expunged. Like it never happened, except it happened. The divorce went through on fault-based grounds. Jackie's lawyer pushed for alimony and a 50-50 split. Sharp had a different opinion. He showed the court that I'd bought the house with my savings and my VA loan. Jackie hadn't put a dime toward the down payment. The business was mine, built by my hands. And the affair was documented 6 ways from Sunday. The judge gave me the business outright. The house was sold, proceeds split 60-40 in my favor. No alimony. Jackie walked away with her nursing salary, her share of the house money, and the knowledge that the man she'd gambled on hadn't even bothered to say goodbye. Custody. The evaluator recommended primary physical custody to me. Stable home, community support, Lily's stated preference. Jackie got every other weekend and 1 evening a week. Joint legal custody on the big decisions. For the baby, my son, once he was born, the same arrangement would apply, adjusted as needed. His name is Walter, after my old man. He's 7 months old now. For the first few months, I had him 1 day a week and a couple of overnights. Judge's orders. And it made sense. He was nursing. But Jackie switched to formula early, and as he got bigger, the schedule grew. Now she drops him off at the shop 3 days a week. She pulls up, unbuckles the car seat, brings him to the door. We exchange about 6 words. I'm not cruel. I'm not warm. I'm done. There's a difference. Lily's in 3rd grade now. She's still drawing. She drew a new family picture a few weeks ago. It's on the fridge right now. 4 people. Lily, me, baby Walter, and a dog we don't have yet. At the bottom, in that shaky handwriting that makes my chest tight every time. My Family by Lily Kowalski. No Uncle Curtis. The shop is doing well. Kowalski and DeMarco, new sign out front. 3 new mechanics, 2 of them vets. I work 8-hour days. I'm home by 5. I cook dinner for Lily, badly, but she thinks burnt grilled cheese is hilarious, so we're making it work. Last week I was standing on the Roberto Clemente Bridge after closing up. Cold night, the Allegheny running dark underneath, city lights doing their thing on the water. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a second, my stomach dropped. You get a thing about unknown numbers after what I went through. Text message. Dominic, it's Teresa. I heard how things turned out. I'm proud of you. You did what I couldn't. You got free. I typed back. Thank you for the USB drive. I should have listened 2 years ago. 3 dots. Then, you listened when it mattered. I put the phone in my pocket. Stood in the bridge for another minute, watching the river move. I wasn't happy, wasn't healed. Wasn't the man I was before because that man was an idiot and I don't miss him. But I was standing.